Good afternoon, Andrew. You're welcome to begin.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's barely, almost evening, but still afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Grice. I'm the Manager of Policy and Programs in the Corporate Assets and Strategic Planning Division of the Public Works Department. I'm here today to give you a presentation on the Civic Gateway Study. Before we get into all the details, I'd like to go over a little bit of an outline of what we're going to talk about today. Start off with the previous council direction, take a look at the history of the Civic Gateway program, look at the public consultation process that was undertaken in 2008, talk about some of the specific locations as well as site challenges, and finally wrap it up with our strategy, financials, and our timeline. So why are we here today? So in September of 2013, GIC heard a presentation from Ms. Laura Babcock regarding gateway programs, and that presentation highlighted existing gateway programs in other municipalities throughout Ontario. After receiving that presentation, committee made the following motion, and in short, it recommends or directs staff to report back with short and long-term plans to address entrance and or gateway signage in an effort to improve the branding and promotion of the City of Hamilton. A little bit of history about what's going on with Civic Gateways. It's been something that's been ongoing for quite a while, initiated shortly after, the initial concept started shortly after amalgamation. So the City of Hamilton's Planning and Economic Development Department completed studies between 2001 and 2008 to examine the importance of gateway features, focusing on site identification, design options, as well as an implementation strategy. In 2008, 4 gateway designs were proposed by urban design staff at 5 locations throughout the city. This process included a fairly comprehensive public engagement process consisting of public information centers, the city's website, as well as making them available at the municipal service centers. I would like to talk a little bit, because it's been quite some time, about the designs that were brought forward for public input. We'll highlight just very quickly some of the characteristics. So design option 1 adopts the current corporate city brand as a basis for the design. Consists of the city's large freestanding H logo and the City of Hamilton in the approved text. The background to landscape is coniferous vegetation that will unite the two elements. Design option 2, shown below, seeks to recall the historic T.B. McMaster high-level bridge, a very prominent and recognizable landmark in the City of Hamilton. In fact, so recognizable that this was very key in the development of the City of Hamilton logo, and you can quite clearly see the two similarities between our logo on the top and the bridge below. The design of this particular gateway consisted of 2 walls, a lower wall in the front highlighting the bridge, with a larger wall in the background displaying the City of Hamilton wording. Design option 3 looked to celebrate and recognize the city's proud industrial heritage while presenting a contemporary forward look. The sign would be constructed on a pedestal with a backdrop of weathering steel that would provide visual appeal and interest. Again, coniferous vegetation frames the gateway to provide further visual appeal. There are quite a few similarities you can see between design option 3 and design option 4, in that the lettering, same size, same font, and on the same pedestal. However, design option 4 looked to recognize the diversity of the city's unique landscapes. And by doing so, or in effort to do so, they could change the background to suit different landscapes. The image you see here on the screen is a collection of deciduous trees, but other backdrops that were discussed included sumac as well as some wild grasses. Oops, sorry, ahead of myself. So as mentioned, the process contained a very comprehensive public engagement process, and the 4 gateway concepts were presented at public information centers, as well as made available on the City of Hamilton's website and available at the municipal service centers. Residents were able to comment as well as vote on their preferred option, and over the course of 4 weeks in June and July of 2008, 91 voters came out in total, and design option 4 was voted as the preferred concept, receiving 28 out of the 91 votes, or approximately 30%. As well as design options, the study also looked at locations. So gateway features are typically located at major entrance points to the city to promote, identify, and brand that particular city. Hamilton's a little bit unique in that it's accessible from multiple highways, being the 403, the QEW, as well as Highway 6. And therefore, the 2008 study identified the five feasible locations for gateways that you see in front of you. Location 1 on the Highway 403 near Highway 6 interchange. Location 2 on Highway 6 near Frilton, capturing people coming off 401 down Highway 6 into the city of Hamilton. Location 3 on the 403 near Alberton Road. Location 4 on the QEW near 50 Road. And finally, location 5, which is on the QEW near the Red Hill Valley Parkway or Centennial Parkway, and that kind of serves as more of a centralized gateway. I would like to talk a little bit more detail about each particular site, some of the challenges about each site, as well as some of the positives. Start off with Site 1, which is the site located on Highway 403 near the Highway 6 interchange. And some of the site-specific challenges here are that the landscapes contain undulating slopes that will require significant fill removal, grading, as well as potential slope stabilization. Secondly, it's located in the Ministry of Transportation right-of-way, and therefore we require an encroachment agreement. Access to the site is a significant challenge. The site is not accessible from municipal roadway or highway, and therefore the only point of access is from the MTO right-of-way. This creates significant construction challenges, as access being limited to the right-of-way may result in temporary lane closures or off-hours work. We can overcome this challenge, but it comes with an increased cost for construction. There are some positives associated with this site, but I'm going to talk about those when we get to our short-term strategy. Site 2 is identified on Highway 6 near Frilton, and the 2008 study identified labeling the Frilton Water Tower as a viable option. Staff noted some concerns with this strategy, one being that the water tower is located approximately 400 meters from Highway 6 and isn't always clearly visible. It is marked on the drawing there, so you can see the separation between Highway 6 and the Frilton Water Tower. Secondly, it's not consistent with the other gateway features that were proposed, those being your more traditional landscape gateway features that you see. And finally, other water towers in Flamborough, it's not consistent with the nomenclature. The most recently constructed water tower in Flamborough, or in Waterdown, it was branded with the Waterdown logo. So again, a lack of consistency. So recognizing these challenges, staff looked for alternative options, and we did identify a small parcel of city-owned land near Highway 6 and Frilton Road, identified on the picture in front of you. This requires further site evaluation, and if it is not a feasible site, we would be required to move again into the MTO right-of-way, requiring an encroachment agreement. Secondly, this site experiences low average annual daily traffic flow based on our MTO statistics. And finally, it's a minimal distance from the road to the existing tree line, limiting visibility and setbacks for a gateway feature. Site 3 was identified on 403 near Alberton Road. Again, the site would be located in the MTO right-of-way, and similar to the Highway 6 location, experiences a relatively low volume of traffic, the lowest of any of the 400 series highways coming into the Hamilton area. On a positive note, sight lines at this site are clearly visible due to the flat landscaping. There is a slight slope at the bridge embankment, which provides a perfect opportunity for the installation of a gateway. And probably most importantly, the site can be accessed from Alberton Road, which is a city-owned road, making construction as well as maintenance activity much simpler. Site 4 was identified on the QEW at 50 Road. This presents a few interesting challenges. Again, located in the MTO right-of-way, requiring an encroachment agreement. But more importantly, MTO policy stipulates only one gateway feature per highway per direction. Therefore, to install a Civic sign or a Civic gateway at 50 Road would require the removal of the Stony Creek sign or an MTO exemption from the approved policy. And we do understand that this is a very sensitive challenge with this site. On a positive note, construction and maintenance access is available from the on-ramp or the off-ramp. So again, not a city-owned road, but it wouldn't require lane closures. The existing topography would require minimal excavation. It experiences a very high traffic flow, and it would capture all traffic on the corridor between Hamilton heading to popular tourist destination Niagara Falls as well as the United States. So it is a very well-used stretch of highway. Site 5 was identified on the QEW near the Red Hill Valley Parkway or the Centennial Parkway. And in April of 2007, Council approved the construction of the QEW pedestrian bridge, recognizing that the potential for linking hundreds of kilometers of trail in southern Ontario. Construction began in 2008 and was completed in 2010. The lighting and graceful design elements incorporated into the bridge are consistent with the vision of a gateway in this location, and therefore through previous staff reports, this location has been identified to be complete. As a gateway. This serves as a gateway at this location. So what are we recommending as our strategy? So staff are recommending focusing on a single gateway at Highway 403 and 6, again, that is subject to MTO approval. MTO approval is granted through an application process consisting of many requirements, some of which include aerial photographs, a proper traffic control plan as per Ontario Traffic Book 7, site plans, draining plans, grading plans, as well as detailed site and landscaping drawings. So a fairly comprehensive package. The total cost associated with fabrication, construction, and installation and design is $230,000. That comprises of $30,000 of soft costs for design as well as application, $170,000 for fabrication installation, and carrying a 15% contingency totaling $230,000. Staff were recommending that $40,000 from the existing PED account for the Gateway program in 2008 be used to WIP fund parts of the program, and the remaining $190,000 be recommended from the Council's Strategic Capital Project reserves. So you may be asking yourself, given all the site challenges with Highway 403 and 6, why are we trying to focus our efforts there? First of all, the proposed location offers an excellent vantage point of the highway. It's a beautiful entrance to the city. Just beyond the gateway, you enter one of Ontario's most beautiful natural elements in Cootes Paradise. I'm not just saying that because I'm the city's rep on the Cootes to Escarpment Committee. It is a beautiful location. Secondly, it experiences a very high traffic volume, in fact, the highest in the city of Hamilton on any of the 400 series highway, and therefore would be viewed by the most eyes. And finally, it's on the official Pan Am route, and therefore it is anticipated that most Pan Am traffic will pass this gateway, clearly promoting and branding the city for the Pan Am Games. For a long-term strategy, staff are recommending that Civic gateways be installed or investigated at the remaining 3 sites, Highway 6 near Freelton Road, Highway 403 near Alberton Road, and the QEW near 50 Road, but those be brought forward to future budget deliberation processes in 2016. This will allow staff to focus on installing one gateway prior to Pan Am Games, learn from any lessons or learn from our mistakes, and implement a sound strategy for the long term. In developing the proposed strategy, staff have focused on site reviews, analyzed traffic flows, and had preliminary discussions with the MTO. Staff also met with the Stoney Creek councillors to discuss the MTO policies and the implications at the QEW and 50 Road site. In order to suit the landscapes at the 403 and Highway 6, staff have refined the design concept slightly. Refinements include a cantilevered design in place of a continuous foundation to suit the existing landscape, as well as coniferous vegetation to provide a year-round backdrop that would complement and highlight the gateway feature. Staff do value public engagement, and the process was completed in 2008, and therefore, as the design has been refined, staff will make it available for public comment on the City of Hamilton website. I'd like to wrap up with just our proposed timeline. So should we move forward, staff would like to initiate the web-based public consultation in June before the summer months to get as many people participating as we can. Pending council approval, we would initiate the detailed design instantaneously with hopes of submitting an application to the MTO in July. Procurement would start upon approval from MTO beginning in early 2015, with site works wrapping up prior to Pan Am Games. Now, staff do understand that athletes as well as visitors will be coming to the city prior to Pan Am Games, so we will make every effort to expedite all processes that are within our control. I would like to point out one element that's not within our control entirely, and is definitely on the critical path, and I'm sure you've seen on here the MTO application and approval process scheduled for approximately 8 months. We do not have complete control over this, but what staff can do is ensure we submit a very comprehensive design package, hopefully avoid the back and forth between ourselves and the ministry to receive a speedy approval. I just wanted to leave you with a vision, a small or very simple rendering of what the proposed gateway feature may look like at the 403 and Highway 6 location. And I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that you have.
I have a speaker's list. I got Councillor Marula, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Collins.
Actually, Madam Chair, I just wanted to speak at the end and speak on the affordability issue and the deferral to the budget process.
Okay, Councillor, so I'll go to Councillor Ferguson. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. So you're saying that the preferred option is option 4, is it?
It was, as per the public consultation process, option 4 was the preferred alternative.
The difference between 1 and 4 is 1 has a logo and 4 doesn't, is it?
I'm sorry, could you
The difference between 1 and 4 is 1 has the logo on it and 4 doesn't?
Oops.
Looking at the handout.
Sorry. They are similar. In option 1, they're using the corporate brand as well as different lettering. And again, the vegetation would differ. In the public consultation process for option 1, they were recommending coniferous vegetation, and in option 4, they were recommending differing the vegetation depending upon the site.
Yeah, I'm indifferent to vegetation. Just it seems interesting they took the logo out, which is sort of the linkage to everything else we have in the city. So, how did option 1 rate in the polling? Because it wasn't a very big poll. You had 90 people.
Sorry?
There's 90 people.
It was a fairly, it was a fairly comprehensive public consultation process, but there was only 91 votes. If you go back, this was 2008, and I think we've seen a very big increase in public participation since that time. Some of the more recent projects that have come forward, you do see a greater public participation. So the voting breakdown were as follows. I'll do them in percentages. Site 1 was 23%, Site 2 was 21%, Site 3 was 3%, Site 4 was 30%, and 20% were voted for none of the above.
Okay. And what you're looking for today is just approval for the one, and everything, all of them will go to the budget deliberations then?
That is correct. We were emphasizing trying to have a gateway installed for the Pan Am Games to promote the city. The remainder would come forward to future budget processes.
And the money would come from the from 2 reserve funds. Okay. I'm supportive of the staff recommendation, Madam Chairman, because I think we need to have this done for Pan Am Games as everybody enters. Most of them will come down the 403 out of Toronto and York Boulevard into the stadium. So at the appropriate time, I'd be happy to move the staff recommendation just for the one.
Thank you. Councillor Collins. I'll come back to you, Councillor. Questions then, Councillor Whitehead.
I'm going to reserve it as a comment. Thank you.
Councillor Farr.
Seeing, Madam Deputy Mayor, that procurement is part of this deal. This is a contract job through and through you.
Through to Madam Deputy Chair, that is correct.
So we're going to farm it out.
Yes, we'll go through the city's procurement process for construction and installation.
We have thousands of folks, public works, but we also landscape architects, and we have forestry people, and it's not, we probably have some welding equipment, and God knows we can get a hold of some steel. Have we ever contemplated on a job like this not contracting out and actually doing it in-house? And if we did, have we contemplated how much less it would cost through you?
I
knew Jerry would want to answer this.
So we do have all those disciplines. We don't have the expertise for a gateway sign in-house to do it. We rely on contractors. We will provide the input that was given by the public, but the actual construction, we don't have the expertise in-house to do the construction.
Steve, can you put up the gateway sign itself?
Sorry. The final image, you mean?
One of the artistic renderings, preferably a simpler looking one, but they're fairly simple. So what expertise do we lack to the GM through you, Chair, if we were to contemplate doing it in-house?
Chair, we don't have the construction capability in-house to build this type of structure.
Without getting into too much detail, Jerry, what do you mean? What construction capabilities are required to do like that Hamilton sign? And I'm not trying to be facetious, just trying to see if we can make it work at a much less cost. I know we can bore holes, I know we can plant trees, and I know there's got to be somebody who can weld and cut with some uniformity, if that's a word, in a uniform way.
So through the chair, the ability to fabricate it, design it, is not something we can do in-house. We can plant trees, yes, we do that all the time. We can assist with that. We can assist with the design, but the RFP will be for a specific discipline of contractor to design it and install it. It's, it's more than just welding and cutting steel out. There's more of a detailed process for both the, the aesthetics of it as well as the making sure it lasts.
What material, through your chair, were we planning on using? I thought I heard steel.
The details would have to be ironed out in the detailed design, but it would be a combination of concrete for a base, as well as the sign would likely be made out of a steel.
And the letters seem uniform in size and shape and dimension. So I'm interested in actually exploring this further. I would like to explore this further, at the very least, to come back with some form of in-house estimate if we could contemplate doing this job in-house, boring the holes, planting the trees, and welding the words Hamilton, and see what sort of price breakdown we have there as opposed to contracting it out. And at the appropriate time, I would move that staff investigate that possibility. Please.
I'll come back to you, Councillor. I have Councillor Ferguson that will have a motion on the floor, and I'll come back to you. Councillor Whitehead?
We have engineers, right? We do very sophisticated design work in the city. We have architects. But I guess the question is, we have all the disciplines. Gary, can you help me understand, if we got all the disciplines, why we couldn't do this in-house?
So through the chair, we have our engineers that design. We have landscape architects. We do not have people who construct things in the city of Hamilton.
Okay, so we don't have any city staff constructing anything in the city of Hamilton. Is that correct?
So through the chair, this is a it looks like, 7, 8 simple letters, and the process, it's not. It's a detailed design. The estimate's $230,000 with using the expertise out there. We don't have that expertise in-house. Yes, we do build things in the city. We do have, a few parks that we help put together, but this is something that requires expertise, and we don't have the discipline to build it or fabricate it within the city of Hamilton.
Okay, and have we haven't entered into going to our steel partners, U.S. Steel or Marslar, to see if, in fact, they want to partner in something like this?
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, at this point we have not. We were waiting for council approval to proceed.
Okay, so there might be other opportunities to reduce some of these costs?
We hadn't explored those, but at the request of committee, we can explore those options.
Madam Chair, I like Councillor Ferguson. When you travel across the province of Ontario, everyone has at least one gateway sign where it's mostly traveled and most visible, whether it's Burlington, Wawa, Ontario, Elliott Lake, it doesn't matter where you go. So at the very least, we do not have a gateway sign, period, in the city of Hamilton. Well, it's not really a gateway either, in the context of something even like this.
But it doesn't say.
Yeah, fair enough. So I certainly believe that before the Pan Am Games, it'd be advisable to at least have one very visible, high volume area gateway sign. So I certainly support that position.
Thank you. If I can, I'll just relinquish the chair to the mayor. Just a couple of questions, and I guess I agree. I want to move forward at least one. I think it's important we have that, and at the most prominent gateway that we need to address. But I am concerned that the logo wasn't incorporated. It wasn't accepted. So I don't know if maybe going forward on the future ones we could look at something. The other question or the other issue, Andrew, you mentioned that the Red Hill, the overpass, the bridge, was taken off, so that's complete. I had suggested the possibility of looking at lettering, like to be affixed to the beam below, because we can't affix anything on the structure itself because of wind velocities. I understand that. But I know that there was some conversation and possibility. It doesn't have to be now, but the possibility of some type of adhesive under, there's a beam at the bottom of that bridge as you come in from heading west to east, that we could affix something to that identifies Hamilton. So I don't know whether I need to put a motion or just direction to staff that we can look at it, but I don't want that taken off the possibility altogether.
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, we can look at that as part of our long-term strategy. I do know that during the design process, as you mentioned, there was considerations given to wind loading. It's also given to rain accumulation and in our unfavorable months, ice accumulation and that dropping onto the roadway. So it does present a little bit of a safety hazard, but we can reevaluate that and bring that back again as part of the long-term strategy.
Would be something affixed to it, like a decal. Underneath, there would be nothing that falls on the roadway because the bridge is actually not over a roadway. So staff understand, I'll leave it with you in that. The other one is the current gateway feature, and the issue with 50 Road is they understand the ministry will not allow another sign within the close proximity of the Stony Creek sign at Fruitland Road. And we did have meetings with the Stony Creek councillors, and we're not supportive of removing our gateway sign at the current time, correct?
We are very clear of that expectation.
Thank you.
What staff will be hoping to do is speak with senior levels at the MTO, and hopefully we can get an exemption from that policy.
And lastly, you had there the timelines, and I'm going to ask, and hopefully now we're in the provincial election, so that may present a bit of a problem. But going through the MTO application, hopefully there's a way that they can bump this review up, recognizing that we need to get things moving along for the Pan Am. That they've encouraged us to participate in.
We would very much like that to happen, and we are engaging in conversations with them. And like I mentioned, one thing that we can do is make sure that whatever we submit to them is very comprehensive. Oftentimes submissions go back and forth for comments. If we can submit a very comprehensive package, we may be able to avoid the back and forth and get a much speedier approval.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. I'll take the chair back, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to turn now to Councillor Ferguson. And you had a motion, then I had
I'll move the staff recommendation, but if I can get a second to that, I'll have a comment on it.
Okay. Councillor.
Are you seconding it, Sam?
No.
No.
I had indicated I wanted to speak.
Correct at
rather
the
than
end. I'm
ask
sorry.
questions.
So Councillor Ferguson, I'm going to hold off that. Councillor Marula, he did.
Oh, but he
at
can
the
bring
very
forward the
beginning.
motion as long as I can speak on it. That's
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I'm going to
Councillor
move the staff recommendation. If I get a second, I just want a brief comment on it. Second by the
Okay.
mayor. Just through to Andrew, I suspect that sign, because it's three-dimensional and because of the weight issues and the maintenance issues, it would have to be built out of aluminum, not steel, would it not?
The 2008 study did not get into the details of construction. As we do our detailed design, we will evaluate all material options.
If I could just imagine the weight of that structure if it was steel, where aluminum is a third the weight, and also it doesn't rust, so you don't have to be out there painting it every 3 years. And so I would expect it would be aluminum, and that is a very special skill to weld aluminum. And I don't think we have that talent in-house to do that, I would suspect. I suspect we farm that out, so just that's my only comment. But I think it's important to get this done for the Pan Am Games and leave the rest to the budget deliberations as Councilor suggested.
Councillor Marula.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I can't support it, and I'll explain why. The Pan Am notion just doesn't jive with me. Knowing the routes to and from Toronto, where the majority of traffic will be coming to the stadium, this sign will be entirely irrelevant. They will be taking the Skyway Bridge to Burlington Street and then making their way to the stadium. They would not be traveling to York Boulevard or Main Street and then going downtown. That just won't be happening. They'll be taking the Skyway. So it's just, I'm just telling you, it's nonsensical to suggest that. So in essence, Pan Am doesn't really play a role in this. So we shouldn't be using that as an example. Secondly, when I brought forward this initiative as a motion, I never anticipated the cost to be as significant as it is. It's just beyond what I anticipated. I was suspecting anywhere from 50 to 100,000 maximum. I just can't rationalize or justify this type of expenditure particularly with respect to some of the challenges that we're faced with. So in essence, along the lines of what Councillor Farr has mentioned in Whitehead, if there is a way to try to mitigate the cost and bring that down to a $50,000 to $100,000 range, I have no problem with it. But to correlate it to Pan Am, I think it's really a misnomer. And when you look at the actual Skyway access to the stadium, we do have the pedestrian bridge, which acts as a gateway, as well as we will be presented with a very significant lit visual sign that actually won't even cost the taxpayers a penny, and that's forthcoming pretty soon. It's going to be a great announcement. So we've taken care of the gateway aspect, and the gateway aspect is important when you're dealing with a visual problem in some way. So over the years, our argument has always been the reason why we have a perceptual problem of Hamilton is because of their visual of going up the Skyway Bridge and crossing to the border and back to Toronto. When you're taking that York cutoff towards Main Street, that is probably, this becomes more of an eyesore than anything else. That is the most visually appealing area, that's Coots Paradise area, that we have on York Boulevard. Frankly, I think it takes away from our natural beauty. That is the actual most beautiful access that we have to Hamilton. And if anything, we're jeopardizing that with this particular sign. So let's not mix apples with oranges here. That particular area does not need a gateway sign. That natural beauty is the most important gateway we have. The effort should be where it remains, and that is on the Skyway with the visual, which we've dealt with the pedestrian bridge and the forthcoming announcement of that significant sign, a $2 million one to boot, which will be forthcoming soon, which won't even cost the taxpayers a penny. So let's just take a step, put this in perspective. I know using Pan Am can be seen as a catalyst to more expenditures, even though we've already spent $150 million plus. But at the end of the day, from a fiscal standpoint, this is totally irresponsible, and I can't support it.
Okay, Councillor, I'm going to turn to Mr. Davis. He had some information with regards to this location.
So just some information. The official transportation route that's been approved by Pan Am is the 403 Main Street, along Main Street into the stadium. That's been approved by Toronto 2015. So that's why the proposed site was based on the report.
Right,
but that's the official.
So on that point, Madam Deputy Mayor, no, I appreciate that, but on that point, people are going to take the. Oh, okay. So on that point, it's great that you can call it an official route, but people are going to look at a map and follow their GPS, and it's going to take them to the Skyway, which is the closest route to the stadium. And not to mention the fact that we're taking a naturally beautiful area and sticking up a sign, which to me becomes more a visual problem than an enhancement. We need to enhance areas where we have a visual problem, not where we don't. And that is one axis we do not have an issue when it comes to a gateway visual. So I can't justify this expenditure. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, along the same lines, my concern when I read the report was certainly the cost and the process. I think we all anticipated that this, whatever came back when we asked for the report, would be forwarded to future budget years. And I know the reference has been made across Ontario. There are other municipalities that have done this, but a lot of those municipalities have found corporate sponsors and service organizations and clubs to pay for them. You can't go anywhere in Northern Ontario and see a sign that doesn't have some kind of a service organization listed on the bottom who helped contribute to those signs. And so there's got to be a better way to do this. I agree that this has nothing to do with Pan Am, and I certainly understand that staff have been concentrating on the Pan Am process and what that might mean to the city. But for me, there are so many other priorities. Having just gone through the budget process, and this winter was harder than most. I mean, the requests now for street repairs and sidewalk repairs after this really, really hard, harsh winter are piling up. And this is a street. The money that we're proposing to spend here is would pay for an average residential street to be redone. So in the grand scheme of things, as we start to prioritize the issues that are in front of us, this one is not at the top of my list. And I really like the fact that staff came back with a lot of information and a lot of options. I think the most prudent course of action at this point in time would be to refer to a future budget process and let the future council determine how this stacks up with all the other issues that we have on our plate.
Thank you, Councillor Morrow. Thank you, Councillor Morrow. We still have Councillor Ferguson's motion on the floor. Councillor Morrow. Councillor Whitehead.
I mean, I remember when Lord Babcock put it out that, Hamilton was one of the few communities that didn't have a gateway sign, and shame on us, and traveled and gave examples all across Ontario. And I'm thinking to myself, she's right. And to talk about the beautiful, to me it's spin, and I know that some councillors are better at it than others, but to suggest that coming into Hamilton and the beautiful Cootes Paradise, you're absolutely right. No question about that. And what I love to see is the fact that people recognize you have arrived in Hamilton. So the sign doesn't have to go in the middle of that at that location. That's not where you're identifying.
It's proposed before you.
It's before you arrive at that particular site, which is complementary. So basically, you get the sign, and then bang, you see this majestic beauty. So from my perspective, when little towns, and this is the funny part, and I've driven all over Northern Ontario and Southern Ontario, and they're not all, whether it's Blind River with the Paul Bunyan, or whether it's Wawa with the Goose, those are not sponsored by Rotary clubs or service clubs. Yes, some are. So we could look at partnerships, but there are many that are not. So let's be clear. I know because I've traveled a great extent of Ontario on a fairly regular basis. And so to me, for a community of this size and significant, and I agree with the councillors on Pan Am, we spent $200,000 just recently on a truck for selling at market prices farmers' food. So from my perspective, not to have to make an investment of $250,000 or look for those partnerships or a sign that would be there for a very, very long time, just doesn't make sense. It's like you could be, you got Councillor Ferguson and myself that, I think we've been pretty consistent on issues of spending, but this is not one of those things where you're wasting dollars. This is a branding exercise. This is about making sure that we have a sign that is reflective of this community, and it states that we're proud of this community, and it lets people know they have arrived. So for one sign, I'm certainly supportive.
Partridge. Mr. Mayor, would you take the chair? I just like to comment, and I will support this. I think Councillor White is correct. I think we need to, if we don't do this now, we don't take this initiative for at least the Pan Am, I don't think we're ever going to take any initiatives to identify Hamilton. And I think this is a perfect opportunity. And ironically, and I go back to the presentation this morning by Mr. Abdullah Mayo with regards to civic crowdfunding. Maybe this is an opportunity where something can come in, but I think we need to start the ball rolling, and we need to have something put in place. I don't believe this is going to detract from the beautiful area of Cootes Paradise. I think this is going to enhance. And as said, tell people they've arrived to Hamilton. And we should be very proud of that. And I will be supporting this. So I'll take the chair back. Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. And on that, with the crowdfunding and potential funding out there from different corporate sponsors, perhaps whatever motion we end up putting forward, that we direct staff to start investigating that, rather than letting it completely die on the vine, so to speak. We might just direct staff to explore that in the interim. Thank you.
Friendly amendment on your motion?
We can do that, Mike.
Okay. So we have Councillor Collins. Well, I had Councillor Collins and then Councillor Farr. Sorry, Councillor Collins. Councillor Collins.
Madam Chairman, I didn't mean to disrespect anyone in terms of my comments. If it was considered spin, then I apologize for that. However, I do recall past debates, and I think of the good people who live on Chester and Chesley, who had to wait 10 years to get their road and their sidewalks redone. So those are the constituents that I'm thinking about as we go through this debate, for people who are waiting for infrastructure improvements, who had to wait a decade, and then issues like this come
Oh,
up.
they're done.
And so they are done now, thankfully. The good councillor got it done after 10 years, and I congratulate him on that.
Councillor Farr.
Come back to haunt you. I'm supportive. I'm cautiously supportive. If it doesn't pass, please come back to me. I would like to press Jerry a little further and maybe request the appropriate staff provide an open call opportunity to qualified in-house people that aren't necessarily identified at this point. There are thousands of staff, and some may have qualifications that even our GM may be unaware of. He's on top of the game. He's well informed. He knows way more about engineering and landscaping and roads and forestry than I do, but I wouldn't mind pursuing it if this fails.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Madam Deputy Mayor, through to Andrew. Andrew, again, the slide showing the 4 different types of signs. Can you just take me through that again, just very quickly, please? The types, what they're made of, and the feedback that you received, please.
I can. I'm going to have to flip back to my notes here.
Between you, Madam Chair, or Andrew, that's fine, sure.
Well, the numbers, you're saying the stats of the votes, Councillor?
Well, I think Councillor Jackson, you were looking for the information about the particular signs.
About the particular signs, yeah, please.
No, sure, I'd be happy. So through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So design option 1 that was presented, adopted the design option 1 that was presented, so the picture on the top there, adopted the current city corporate brand as a basis for the design, the large freestanding H, and also using the city's approved font and color for the word Hamilton. The freestanding letters are supported on a low-lying concrete wall, and the background would be accentuated with coniferous vegetation.
And would that be wind resistant? And I'm not trying to be funny about this, but we know what happened to the Art Gallery of Hamilton sign, brand new sign that was installed many years ago, and it unfortunately, if I recall, wasn't wind resistant, and it was a little bit embarrassing. So forgive me for asking this.
Oh, that's an absolutely valid question. Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. That's something will be addressed during the design process to ensure that is installed or designed and installed properly.
Okay. And the next one then?
So the second option on the lower photo there looks to recall the historic T.B. McQuestion high-level bridge, a very prominent landmark in the city of Hamilton. Also mentioned the tie to development of the corporate logo. You can see the 2 similarities between our corporate logo and the bridge.
Is that basically, Andrew, the word Hamilton, the name Hamilton across the bridge?
It is. So this design consists of 2 separate walls. So the bridge is a low-lying concrete wall in the front. There's a larger wall behind it displaying the word Hamilton. And the reason that they developed this offset was to add a little bit of depth and a silhouetting effect to the bridge.
Option 3, please.
Sure. Option 3 look to recall and celebrate Hamilton's industrial heritage, but at the same time bringing forward a more contemporary design. So the letters would be erected on a pedestal, and in behind would be a wall of self-weathering steel or weathering steel, Corten steel, that would help accentuate the design. And again, in behind you would have coniferous vegetation that would just frame the entire gateway.
And the red is why? Is that a painted red backdrop?
No, the red, that's just a steel. If you'll recall the bridge at the top of the Lincoln Red Hill, where the pedestrian bridge that goes across, that's weathering steel. So over time, it just turns into what people like to call a beautiful red color. That would just kind of add some character.
So just on that, Andrew, and again, not being facetious, and I'm very proud of getting the money to build that bridge over the link, that pedestrian bridge, but I can't tell you, and Gary Moore had to help a number of my constituents to explain why that bridge looked like it was orange and rusted, and nobody understood this thing about it's some kind of weather resistant, and that's the way it has to be, Councillor, because in the long run it's less maintenance, and I can tell you the average citizen and taxpayer just didn't buy the argument. But anyway, so you're saying that's going to be that
being a structural guy myself, I totally agree.
Okay, thank you. And the last one,
Unfortunately,
option 4?
Option 4, so there's a lot of similarities between option 3 and option 4. You can see the letters and the pedestal are very similar. But what option 4 tried to bring to the table was recognizing that the city of Hamilton is unique. We do have the escarpment, we have the low city, we have the coots. So what they were suggesting was that we could change the background at each location. So the image you see here before you would be using a group of small deciduous trees, but what they've explored as other options would be utilizing some sumac or as well as some wild, colorful grasses. So just providing a different backdrop to the sign.
So, Madam Deputy Mayor, Andrew, again, your recommendation, if it stands, the 230 grand is for the site at the 403 and 6, and which type?
Well, we would be following the 2008 public consultation process, which identified option 4 as the preferred design concept. We have had to make some slight refinements to suit the existing landscape, and the other suggestion that has been made is the use of coniferous vegetation, which was prominent in the other 3 options. The issue with deciduous vegetation is that for 6, 7, 8 months of the year at times, it is blank. And without having a formal background, a sign of that size, you would just lose it as you're driving by. It would never stand out. So staff are recommending coniferous vegetation that would help unite the 2 elements, make it clearly visible.
And Madam Deputy Mayor, Andrew, this sign at 403 and 6, this would be just before the ramp that goes up for 6. Help me explain that. Explain that to me, please. So as I'm traveling 403 into Hamilton. Yes.
The Highway 6 interchange.
The Highway 6 that goes up towards Clapson Corners. Yes.
So you're traveling down 403, you start to go around the corner.
That's near the harbor then?
The harbor would be as you come around.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. Thanks, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
Councillor Ferguson, your motion? Okay, it was moved and seconded. All in favor? Stand and recorded vote. Okay, all in favor? Staff? Okay, so you want we vote on the deferral first, Ida? Clarify then the referral, so we have to vote.
All of them are being deferred to the budget except the one. So you're asking for the one to also go to the budget? Okay, I can't support that, Madam Chair.
Now, one final note, staff will make every effort to keep the design or the construction costs down. So that was our estimate. We will do our best to keep it as low as possible.
Maybe it's an amendment that needs to be put forward, but I thought we were going to give direction to look at.
We are. So that would be part of our effort to try and keep costs to a minimum, every effort we can make.
Great.
Okay, item 8.1, waste collection operation supplementary information. Do we have information? Is there a presentation or anything being done, just an update? So yes, Councillor Whitehead.
As you know, that this is something that evolved out of an investigation by Steve Buse, I believe, at the Hamilton Spectator. And there's a number of questions that were put forward in regards to that investigation, and we asked staff to do some due diligence. So this is basically the response to that due diligence. And clearly in this report, I know that we talked about the fact that we had planned to do optimization of rationalizing the routes. Is that correct, through the chair to staff?
Yes, in 2012, through you, Madam Chair, 2012 staff identified an intent to perform a route rationalization, brought forward a capital item for the 2013 budget to provide resources to undertake that rationalization review. Going forward, there was a new waste contract put in place, service program put in place in 2013. We now have, and that was April, so we now have April to April data. That's a full year cycle worth of data that we can use in the analysis of that route review. Now it's prudent for us to move forward to undertake that review, purchase software to do the analysis of the data and the various parameters that we need to reflect in that review, identify opportunities for improvement. As we reference in the recommendations, engage our stakeholders in the analysis of those opportunities, and bring back findings to Council late this year, early 2015, with recommendations for improvement opportunities for further optimization of our program.
I see in the report you're also recommending GPS. Can you explain why?
For you, Madam Chair, it's essentially industry standard in any operation that involves a large fleet to have that kind of information from a point of view of risk management, from program accountability, data that can allow us to be more accountable to our customers, data that we can use to further manage the program into higher and higher levels of performance. If you note in the recommendations, we refer to an annual report on the program performance. That GPS data would be essential for running through our software system annually and more frequently to ensure that we are optimized in the deployment of our resources. So it's a very essential tool, and today it's an industry standard.
Appreciate that. The current routes that are being finished by noon, are those routes, do they pre-exist us contracting the recycling and taking some of those pieces from the city workers and put it out to the private contractors?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, those routes have been in existence for quite a while. They're done by my current field supervisors, done manually.
Okay, so when some of that workload was reduced as a result of the contractors taking on, the recycling and what was the other piece, the compostable material, when that was taken sort of out of the hands of the city the city workers in that particular location, did we make any alterations in regards to the route, understanding that they wouldn't be doing as much at the time?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm not sure if I follow your question there, but half the city's done with public forces that do garbage, leaf and yard, bulk.
I'll try this again.
And organics.
And I know it's a difficult way to ask the question. So we had routes that were established in the downtown, and we had at one point in time they used to pick up the recyclables. Is that correct? Was never picked up by recyclables. Was there anything that was taken off those city workers in the last 10 years or so?
The blue box service has always been contracted out 100% across the city.
Right from day one?
Yes.
Okay. When's the last time those routes were looked at?
Through the The approved new waste collection system that Brian talked about that rolled out in April 2013, based on the data that was applied to us, the resources needed to perform those duties based on the tonnage and the routes size, that's when they were looked at. So that's what we've been running with for the last year, and now we've reached to a point where we'd like to introduce some software to help us optimize those routes.
To assess and analyze whether those routes are sufficient relative to an 8-hour day.
Through you, Madam Chair, I have 2 supervisors that oversee approximately about 35 trucks that are sent out a day. Through our activity-based costing system, the data shows that we're comparable with a cost per ton and a cost per stop with our current contractor. Based on 2012 numbers, we do not have 2013 numbers current right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm asking the question the wrong way. So we've established that, and I'm not disputing the tonnage, I'm not disputing the competitiveness, but what I want to get at is that we have workers that were doing what was expected of them, completing the work that they were assigned by our management, and they were finishing that work by 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and an 8-hour day. So what I'm trying to get at is, and regardless of the competitiveness, I'm not disputing any of that. What mechanisms did we have in place, or what was our supervisor's role to ensure that we're getting 8 hours work?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the ratio between the number of crews that we have and the staff is extreme, and how we've been able to best utilize that is in terms of making sure that our staff are working in compliance with our safety standards and with general performance standards. So to expect that level of supervisory resource to provide active real-time coverage for that number of crews just isn't possible. And it really drives back to your question as to why GPS, because GPS will be very useful in being able to provide that real-time supervision for us. So it's a critical tool for us, given the staff resources, supervisory staff resources that we have.
I guess the problem I'm having with that, and that's why I need some clarification, we had one reporter that was able to make that assessment very quickly, and yet we're saying we didn't have enough supervisors to be able to establish that maybe and perhaps we should be adding more to those routes, or at least optimize those routes because they're being done by 12:30, 1 o'clock in the daytime.
Through you, Madam Chairman, Madam Chair, I think it might be helpful just to consider the perspective that our objective is to ensure that waste is removed according to the schedule daily, without fail, save and except for extreme conditions or unexpected equipment failure. So as a result, we assign our resources to ensure that happens every day. And the contingencies or the variables are many: weather, temperature, road conditions, the volume of set out that they have to deal with, equipment breakdown from time to time, staff availability. All of those factor into a wide number of variables that can affect the productivity of the whole program and any given crew on any given day. So as a result, I think the program has been designed since day one to ensure that service level is provided, come what may. That implies that we are not targeting our resources for the mean in terms of what we might expect in terms of challenges in delivering the services, but we're challenging it for the peak so that we ensure that service delivery is in fact achieved daily without fail. So I think over time, the earlier report provided back in March identified a number of historic program improvements that we have made, and we've made those by virtue of observation and analysis of program performance, and we were able to redeploy resources into other areas for optimizing value. Example, alleyway cleanliness program, some of the downtown cleanliness initiatives were basically resourced by those kinds of rationalizations. So we are evolving to, I think, optimal performance in terms of an optimal efficiency, and I think that the review exercise that we are going to be initiating with the software purchase and the GPS implementation will set us on a new path in terms of our ability to analyze the circumstances that we deal with daily from an anecdotal point of view. We'll be able to technically analyze them in a very detailed, matriculated way. So what it means is we'll be able to establish a tighter balance between risk and efficiency, and I think that will generate some opportunity to bring better value through this program. So yes, we recognize that on a day-to-day basis, you can certainly identify or make observations that there is perhaps some time available or under capacity in the system, but certainly in the context of having to ensure that service is delivered, it's not, I think in my mind, unexpected that those observations could be made. So I hope that perspective is helpful.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to understand whether we would give management that oversaw this division a passing grade or not with what was established through this investigation.
Madam Chair, I'm very proud of what we're doing here in terms of planning and managing this program. I think that we're moving it forward on a continual basis. The metrics that we've had for the previous contract, I think, were very favorable in terms of our performance. We recognize that we cannot rest on our laurels, so we have put this rationalization plan in place, and I think that we've been moving that forward consistently since 2012 in a logical manner. I think it's very helpful to have public attention on our services and be able to bring recognition to those employees that work in very extreme conditions day in, day out and provide a very valuable service to the city. So I really appreciate the media attention that has been focused on this particular service, and it helps us, I think, bring forward any change recommendations in the future because there'll be a full understanding of the environment in which this program is delivered. So quite proud of what we've done. I'm looking forward to what we achieve going forward, and I hope that helps.
No, I appreciate it. I'm trying to understand as a layperson when they read an article and they understand that our workers are doing what's asked of them. So they're all pointing the finger at management and saying, what did management do to ensure that we're optimizing the value in regards to what we're paying for the service in an 8-hour day? And what's in this report is excellent, going on a go-forward basis. But I think what I'm really trying to get at is I want to raise the comfort level that first of all, we understand that we were moving on, and I was told that from day one that we were doing the optimization and rationalization of the routes. Anyway, this actually caught us before you were able to embark on that process. But having said that, I believe the article indicated this was a practice that appeared to be going on for a long, long time. I don't know if we've established that, have we?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the practice that's been in place predates amalgamation, and frankly, from my understanding, it has been a long historical industry standard in terms of practice, and I think that may be changing, and I think that we'll be evolving forward from that history as we embark on this the completion of this review. But certainly that kind of practice of ensuring that schedules are fully achieved on a daily basis, come what may, has been, I think, a focus of the industry, and the consequences of having some undercapacity in the system.
I'm going to ask this question one more time, then I'm done. Maybe a different way. So what I'm hearing is that management that oversaw this division over the last decade or however long this practice has been in, we believe have done an admirable job. Is that what I'm hearing? In overseeing and ensuring that we're optimizing the taxpayers' dollars on that service?
Through you, Madam Chair, I can only speak for my tenure over the last 2.5 years or so in this program, but I'm quite pleased with the progress that we're making. I know that the previous management team had received a number of accolades and awards from their industry peers relative to their achievements over the previous time frame. So I would say the indicators to me are that Hamilton has certainly been a leader in this area, and that we're continuing to try to maintain that momentum.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Marula, Councillor Jackson, and Councillor Partridge.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And Brian, first of all, thank you for the report. It has received a lot of media attention, as you say. So, as I understand it, these employees choose not to take their breaks and lunch while they're out on the route. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
These employees choose not to take their breaks or their lunch while they're out on the route. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair. Flexibility is provided to each crew to assess the conditions that they're working in a given day, be it heat or cold or inclement weather, and to take breaks as required to help maintain their health and safety throughout the day. So yes, they do have that flexibility to schedule their breaks.
Do the drivers and throwers switch off? Sorry, can you give me your name? Are you the new Blair Smith?
I'm the new Blair Smith, Colin Vidler.
What's your name? Sorry.
Colin Vidler.
Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, the drivers do switch off. An hour on, an hour off is the norm.
Okay. And so I'm reading in the report that they're on the clock, figuratively or literally, not sure, at 6:30. So the employees are expected to be in the yard at 6:30. And under the bylaw, they don't, because of noise, they don't head out until 7. So it's half an hour to prepare the truck, warm it up, put on their personal protective equipment, and then head out of the route at 7. And I'm reading in the report they're back sometime between 1 and 2:30. I think the media report showed they're generally back around 1 or 1:30. But if it is, so I pick an average of 1:30, so from 6:30 to 1:30 is 7 hours. And so in the collective agreement, how much time are they given for a lunch break and the 2 breaks per day?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's 15, 15, and 20, 2 breaks, 15 and 20 for lunch.
20 for lunch. So that's 50 minutes a day then. Okay. So if you add that 50 minutes to 7 hours or close to 8 hours, if in fact they're in the yard at 6:30 and they're finishing up and heading out of the yard, they've cleaned the truck up and washed it down, they're heading out of the yard at 1:30, that's 7 hours, plus they've sacrificed their breaks and their lunch times, so that's 7 hours and 50 minutes that they would have been physically on the job because they chose not to take lunch breaks. My fear of this, and having a construction background, is if you've got someone who's got that culture that they want to get through fast in order to get back to the yard early to get home, and they're sprinting from stop to stop, and we've seen photos of that of the former waste management. I used to be on that with the chairman. In fact, we saw situations where they're going so hard they threw the whole darn green bin in the truck rather than take the time to dump it. First thing that flashed in my mind, I read the story, is what's your lost time injuries like? Because when you're sprinting, you're going to slip, you're going to trip. When you're throwing that stuff on hard, you're going to have back injuries. How is our lost time injuries in the waste management operation compared to the rest of the city? Measured on registered lost time injuries per 100,000 man hours. Do you have that ratio? Or do you have some kind of a ratio?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't have it. I could provide it afterwards. I have reviewed the stats over the last 5 years, and they have been relatively consistent within a fairly small range. I think one of the benefits of this rationalization is that we're taking the opportunity of reviewing the current physical demands assessment for the job, and what we're adding to that assessment is some sort of guideline or parameter around how much actual weight can be lifted by an individual operator in a given day, and what would be the preferred rate of speed of motion or operation. And we think that as we work through the findings of our preliminary analysis in our stakeholder consultation with our frontline operators and union representatives, we'll be able to have a fulsome discussion around whether, in fact, historically, we have moved or worked too quickly, at the perhaps expense of some quality issues in the delivery of the service, and perhaps even personal safety. So I think that there's lots of other benefits through the rationalization that we'll be able to achieve. And you're touching on one of them here in terms of worker safety, vehicular wear and tear reduction, and overall quality of work as well. So,
because when you put health and safety at risk, that's not good for the worker. I mean, they're off injured. Plus, it's not good for the city because they're on short-term disability and receiving full pay. But I've understood, Brian, through you, Madam Chairman, that the lost time injuries in waste is higher than the rest of the Public Works Department, the outside workers. Is that information I've got correct?
Madam Chair, that's generally true. Yes, it's also a fact that I think our workforce is somewhat more aged than the average for the department as well.
Okay, because if I look around, your public works guys on roads, they're not young guys either. And could we get those hard stats, lost time injuries for waste, and the lost time injuries for the rest of the outside workers at Public Works, just so, because it gives me a yardstick to know whether we're compromising health and safety in order to allow these employees to get home a half hour, or an hour and a half early. Because that's very expensive for us as an employer, plus it's very painful and an unpleasant experience for the employee. There was an allegation made, which wasn't touched on in the report, about the trucks sitting for a period of time on private property before they pull into the yard. Have you had a chance to investigate that? Want to answer that, Paul or Brian?
I'm not able to comment on it this time, but I can certainly provide something along with the provision of the statistics, if you like.
Because, if that's really happening, that's a concern, that they're delaying there to get up to their number of hours before they pull into the yard. And if so, how long are they sitting there? And I understand the GPS that's one thing it'll give to you, very definitive data on how long they're sitting at one particular location before they pull into the yard. Because I think that was something that touched a nerve with some people I talked to in the community. And also the route rationalization, my last question is, we've been successful over the last 10 years to getting 50% diverted to recycling now, which is done by a private contractor for the blue bins, which has got to be reflected in a significant reduction in the amount of waste that these guys are picking up. Has there been any route rationalization in the last 10 years as a result of what we've been able to recycle?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. So then, I think that the route rationalization is something we need to see and understand, and that's coming back to us. The GPS will tell us if that truck is sitting and sitting where for how long, which was helpful on that other situation we had. So with the GPS, the route rationalization, and I'd like that information back on health and safety, for putting these people at risk. Thanks.
So that's direction to staff, and I know they'll be sure to provide that to all of us. Thank you. So I now have Councillor Marula, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Partridge, Councillor Pasuda, and Councillor Farr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think Councillor Ferguson hit all the points that I think are very important. And when we're looking at this particular issue, I think for the most part, waste collection is the most scrutinized and hands-on service that the residents of the city have on a weekly basis. It's most visible as well. And when you look at what we deliver, the over 260 services that we deliver, this is one area, and I know that the public truly appreciates, and frankly, I get very, very little complaints about. And when you look at these ladies and gentlemen, and what they're able to do, I think a lot of what they're doing should be modeled throughout our entire corporation. Councillor Collins and I, we had an opportunity to actually do a shift with them a number of years ago. And I can assure you, it's a grueling position, firstly, but what really stuck out in my mind at that time was their ability to work as a team. The fact that some crews would finish sooner and then backtrack to help others, to me spoke volumes, because the perception of city workers is that you have 5 guys standing around digging one hole. And that's the common understanding, and that's what we're criticized for. So now we have a group of individuals, and And it's really a bonus in lieu of that they're able to go home an hour and a half, 2 hours early, but get the job done. So the fact that they've been able to work as a team collectively, actually backtrack to help out their colleague with the incentive of let's do this collectively and together and let's get this done so that we can go home an hour early without breaks or lunch. I think I would accept that in other departments that we can measure accordingly. Can you imagine if our public works department were able to fill every pothole every day of the week where I could wake up in the morning and not drive through some of these craters? I welcome that. So if we can somehow apply this model to other parts of the public works department, I not only welcome it, we should vigorously study it, because what we have here, and maybe that's why some people think this is a story, is because it's an anomaly. We actually have city workers not only doing their job, but doing it faster and better than the rest of the corporation. So maybe that is the story, and maybe that's why people are so astounded by it. And sure, they finish at 12:30 or 1:30, but they start at 6 or 6:30. They're at the yard at 6 in some cases. I know Councillor Collins and I were there at about 6:30, 6:45. They were all there, mapping out their routes. They might not be timed in, but they're there early. And they're there early on condition that they're going to finish their task at hand and then not take their lunch, not take their breaks, and go home an hour and a half, 2 hours early. Man, I wish everybody worked along those lines. We'd be the most efficient and effective city and public works department in North America. Also, the fact that they've been able to do this and negotiate within their public or within their collective agreement, the fact that it empowers them and creates a morale where they're unified as a team to accomplish this on a day-to-day basis. And the fact that some people are expecting the city to come down hard with the hammer and say, you work your damn 8 hours or you're not getting paid, you're basically asking them to slow down and pretend they're busy. That model of management is 1925. Those are the days when people waited for the horn to go off just so they can get the hell out of there and take shortcuts all day and in between. So the fact that they collectively have a morale that I think surpasses most other departments in our corporation, and something that creates this efficiency and effectiveness, should be applauded and not discredited. And the fact that these routes have been determined, it's not an exact science. You looked at post office deliveries. Some mailmen can do the route in 5 hours. Some might do it in 9. But they have a route. It's completed. It's their job. So some may work quicker than others, but do we expect every human being to be exactly within the same time frame? That's nonsense. It's nonsense to suggest that. So it might be an hour, half, 2 hours difference between one crew and another. But if you look at this in detail and you look at it for what it actually means, we have one of the best departments that need to be applauded, and their model and the way they've been able to unify as a team to collectively work towards an outcome that I know for a fact my residents are satisfied with by the vast majority. The support for these guys and girls are phenomenal. I say let's adapt and model this in other areas of our corporation. And I applaud them. I know how hard it is, and I know everyone recognizes that. And when you look at their hourly rate, they're in the lower end of the hourly rate in the city. So they're not the best paid, but they are the best performers, and they work as a team. And I know it defies all perception of city workers in that everyone's just standing around doing nothing and the task not being completed. But these guys are starting early. They're not taking their breaks. They're not taking their lunches. They're working together as a team, backtracking to help their colleagues. That's exactly what we should all be aspiring to not only do personally, but to empower our entire corporation to do the same. So I want to publicly applaud them and have them continue doing what they're doing, but also continually manage to try to find more efficiencies. Because I don't think anybody should just accept the status quo. I think that our ways of optimizing and ensuring that there are means of improving the service. And I think the legitimate concern about their own safety and health is one that we need to address. Are they subjecting themselves to potential health and safety issues? If that's the case, then we should definitely find a way to mitigate that. But if it's not, and all I see before us is something that we should be expanding throughout the entire corporation because they're getting their job done, and I only wish that we could fill potholes as well as these guys pick up the garbage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'm just going to add, this is one area, too, that they have to complete that route in that day, because very rarely do we have them run over unless it's an absolute weather-related issue or breakdown or something, but generally they're always done that day. Thank you. Councillor Jackson, then Councillor Partridge, Pasuta, and Councillor Farr. Jackson.
Thanks, Madam Deputy Mayor. And Brian, Director Scheinel, thank you for the report up through General Manager Davis. Can I pick up, Brian, on what Councillor Ferguson and Marula have touched on the safety issue? Any feedback at all from management and or from Darren Vernon, President of QP 5167, and the membership in terms of any concerns, let's just say for the sake of argument, on average, doing the work in 5 hours, from a safety standpoint, maybe rushing things a little too much, inclement weather from time to time. Madam Deputy Mayor, I think, Brian, you get the gist of what I'm asking. Through you to Brian Scheinel, please, Brian.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the Councillor. Safety is always a concern. I think this rationalization gives us an opportunity to sit down with frontline staff and union executive and take a look at the historic statistical performance from a safety perspective and just analyze that relative to the new physical demands analysis document that we will have produced through this exercise and take a look at what changes are likely to be expected out of the compliance with the new PDA and how that will benefit our program delivery, the quality of program delivery, and also the improved level of public and workplace safety. So I look forward to being able to put that information on the table vis-a-vis the objective new PDA and to see how we can move our statistics to a better place going forward.
So, Brian, I heard accurately that 5167 is on for that kind of discussion and review. Is that what I heard, Brian?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, that's I think that's encouraging, and that's a key point. Maybe it's not the best analogy, Madam Deputy Mayor, but I remember from my days studying in university, I always admired the brilliant ones in my class who studied and took a few hours to study and aced their exams. And for me, I took usually a whole week, and I did my darndest to get a B. And so I respect the fact that if the entire job is being done and being done safely, and all the work carried out, and management's aware of that. So again, using my analogy, there's something, I guess, to be admired as long as they're finishing it, doing it properly, responsibly, and with management aware of that practice. Madam Deputy Mayor, through you to Brian. Brian, the A part. So let me ask you this now. You want to look at the feasibility of installing a GPS. So, Brian, if what I've heard and what I've read in the report and all the media reports, primarily through the daily newspaper, has suggested that both QP and supervision are aware of this practice for the public sector side of collecting waste. Why do we need a GPS? Madam Deputy Mayor, through you to Brian.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think we have data from the current, the last 12 months of the operation from April to April 13 to 14. I think we've got sufficient data to run our rationalization exercise. The GPS is going to be helpful to us in terms of providing more detailed information going forward, better accountability on a customer basis and on an overall program performance basis. More data gives us more measurements and gives us better opportunity to track our performance and trends and so on, so that we can continue to improve going forward. I think once we, as you improve, obviously the refinements get smaller and smaller, and it's dependent on more and more detailed data, and that's what GPS can provide for us over and above what we've been able to work with historically. So I think it's going to be helpful largely in program accountability and managing efficiencies going forward.
Madam Deputy Mayor, through to Brian. Brian, I read that the project funding for the GPS was approved in 2013. I didn't see a dollar amount in the report. How much is that, please, roughly? Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just even a ballpark figure, Brian, just to give me some idea.
Approximately $85,000.
About $85,000?
Yep.
Okay, that would hopefully be an upset limit, Brian, from what you would understand. So, Brian, obviously then, Madam Deputy Mayor, through to Director Scheinall, this would only be the GPS and the optimization. This would only be for the public sector side of waste collection. The reason why I ask that is because GFL has, as you know, we just signed, a year ago, a new 7-year contract with them. So is GFL potentially going to come to the table and go, yeah, I guess we could alter the contract? Madam Deputy Mayor, through to Brian for a comment on that, please, for an explanation on that. Is this just the public side? Is it including GFL? If it is, help me understand with a 7-year locked-in contract how that works. Brian?
Through Madam Chair, I'll start, and perhaps Colin can fill in the rest. The budget amount and the implementation, that recommendation I relates to, is purely for the in-house operation, and GFL is fully equipped with GPS AVL presently, and they use that within their own program and contract management. I don't believe that we've had any detailed discussions with them about the possibility of sharing our information, other than as we presently do through our ABC exercise, but that's certainly a discussion that we can have going forward.
Oh, so Brian, GFL already has GPS installed system, whereas the in-house does not. Okay. Obviously, A and B part of your recommendation of Report 8.1 is conditional upon C, which is compliance and cooperation from 5167, Madam Deputy Mayor, through to Brian. Like if 5167 hypothetically said, management, just relax, we're not going to be sitting down and talking about this. Yeah, I'm trying to understand, are A and B, possible installation of GPS, performance review and optimization, is C, is that conditional upon cooperation compliance in C? Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, to Brian.
It's not conditional, but it would certainly be helpful, and I think all parties recognize that and are willing to collaborate in that manner. So if hypothetically they were not, we would proceed with the review based on the information and the perspectives that we have.
Okay, so that's encouraging, Brian. You're saying from the initial feedback, the union is theoretically on side to be part of this discussion moving forward. I'm seeing affirmative. Well, Madam Deputy Mayor, as somebody who was here pre and post amalgamation and at the time of amalgamation, I just want to make a comment and say that I supported the current hybrid model that we currently have, with half the city in-house, public, and half the city with the private operator. I always thought it was good from a competitive standpoint, comparator standpoint, checks and balance standpoint, and I wanted to honor the old City of Hamilton public employees who overwhelmingly do their best in providing good, darn public service for the citizens of our city. And on the other hand, with a new City of Hamilton operation, with management at the time recommending a hybrid, I thought there was some merit and benefit to going the hybrid model. And as far as I'm concerned, moving forward, I'd like to maintain the hybrid model and the issues of safety and optimization. And with the union, so far hearing from the director and the new manager, Mr. Vidler, that they're willing to be part of moving forward. That's encouraging. And with all that said, I'm happy to support the report here before us today. Thanks, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. And some questions have been asked and answered. But Brian, I want to just come back to recommendation A in the report, where it says GPS on all City of Hamilton waste collection vehicles. Can you define waste collection vehicles for me, please?
Through you, Madam Chair, that would be all the waste collection packers as well as supervisors' pickup trucks.
All right, so just so I understand, and Paul, thank you for that. Colin, it would be all of the collection vehicles plus the supervisor's pickup trucks?
Correct.
Any cars in there? And how many vehicles altogether would there be?
We currently have, I believe we have 38 waste collection packers right now, the green and blue garbage trucks. And I think we have about 7 pickup trucks in our supervisory field.
7?
7, correct.
All right, thank you. And did I hear someone say that it's $85,000 to outfit all of those trucks? That was the figure?
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that, cars and trucks. So did I also hear that the GPS can detect idling trucks?
For you, Madam Chair, there's many different factors that you can link in with the GPS. Idling would be one of them. Another one of the benefits that we'd have would be we could indicate when trucks are going into reverse. So that would be a red flag for us also. That would help with our accident rates and our CVO rates, as well as obviously waste collection packers reversing in residential streets is a health and safety concern for us. Mm-hmm. Another trigger you could put on there possibility is aggressive driving. So aggressive acceleration or hard on the brakes. That would help us with our maintenance of the vehicles. So that's one of the other spin-off benefits of a GPS AVL system on the trucks.
All right, so what I'm hearing is they're programmable then?
Correct.
For what we want to put on. All right, thank you for that. Do they start when the truck or the vehicle is turned on and turned off? How does that work?
I can't answer that. Different models out there would probably work differently, but I imagine as soon as the vehicle is started, it tracks where the vehicle is going and the activity of the vehicle. There's some options out there where the GPS is, or the AVL is hardwired into the vehicle. There's other options out there where it's a portable device that would be handed to the driver in the morning and then returned at the end of the shift.
Okay, and I think that's important to understand. If the truck can be turned on, but the GPS isn't turned on or is done manually or not hardwired into the system as you see, then, I'd be interested to see what GFL has on their vehicles. Do we, and I think those are my questions on the GPS, when the workers arrive in the morning, what do they do when they arrive? How do you know that they're there? Is there a system that, in the old days it was punching in, we don't do that anymore. So how do you know that they've arrived?
For you, Madam Chair, we have a counter down there with supervisors behind the counter. The supervisors, a lot of time is taken with the supervisors to match the partners up. If you're standing on the back of a truck, you've got to make sure that you're comfortable with who is driving that truck. So there is a lot of thought process put into that. And there's daily schedules that are made up, and they check in as they come in the morning.
I appreciate that. I haven't been down to the yard first thing in the morning. I have been there throughout the day, being on the committee, but I just wasn't entirely clear what happened when the crews arrived. And how many crews are we talking here?
I have a winter complement of budgeted 48 FTEs for the waste collection folks, and in the summertime with seasonality, an additional 12 dual classification come over from the road section. So currently right now I'm running about 60 staff to deal with the leaf and yard.
Okay, and has that been the same number for all the years that we've been using this hybrid model in terms of the city crew? Has the number of crew increased or decreased over the years?
Through you, Madam Chair, the number of staff have decreased. We've looked at other efficiencies. Brian mentioned earlier that we initiated the 4 FTEs for the alleyway cleanliness program. We've expanded our public space litter container program by using some of the FTEs in waste collection. Since our numbers were adjusted with the new waste collection system in April 2013 with the 52 weeks unlimited leaf and yard and call-in bulk enhanced service.
Okay, so, and thank you for that. I think, again, that's important to know that the crews numbers have actually decreased, and yet we're still finding efficiencies. And so on the route rationalization that's going to happen, can you explain to me just exactly what that involves?
What we're looking for on the route optimization is basically for a third party to come in with a fresh set of eyes to look at our operations, to look at our current routes, to get the number of households on our current routes, to look at the physical demands analysis of our operators to see how much they can actually, in a safe manner, collect during an 8-hour shift, and the software. It'd be a software system that would be installed through our Hansen system. It would be pulling data from there, from our Paradigm weight system. It would be pulling from there. Time and motion study data would be plugged into the software. It would highlight where it would set up routes, start and finish, where the operators would have a dashboard model in their trucks. It would highlight such areas as schools to ignore school areas at 9 o'clock in the morning, limit left-hand turns, right-hand turns are the way to go. So that's the sort of thing we're hoping to have a nice big screen in the waste collection office where we can see a bunch of blips on the trucks moving around on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you, Colin. I appreciate that. Will the optimization review also include interviewing some of the employees on an individual basis so they have opportunity to comment?
What we're hoping to do is working with 516 representatives is get together a work team which would include 2, 3, 4 of the current operators to work on that routing. I think it would help tremendously with buy-in.
Okay. Thank you, but I do think it is important that we engage the workers and have opportunity to interview them, whether it's with the city manager, with the supervisor, with the department head, or actually with a third party. Peer review would be a better suggestion. Is there any other department where we allow this kind of flexibility throughout our organization? Is this an anomaly, or is this something that we do practice in other departments? Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, all right. So there is no other department anywhere in the city other than this department for waste collection where we allow this flexibility.
So through the chair, in Public Works, there's no other departments that do this. I don't know of any others in the city. Maybe Chris.
Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chairman, just echoing what Jerry's saying, this is a unique service, and there are no other departments that certainly I'm aware of that undertake the same kind of practice.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. And if I may, Madam Deputy Mayor, there's no question this is a difficult job, especially throughout the year when we have different seasons. But I certainly will tell you that I have been hearing from my residents on this particular situation. But I think more importantly, I wish that we didn't receive the complaints that we do, but we do get a number of complaints, and I know you know this because they're all forwarded to you to take action on. And my residents, you know, they want this looked into a little bit more, and if it means getting away from that hybrid certain format that we've got, we at least need to have the discussion about that. So I'm really looking forward to the reports that are coming back. And again, you know, my residents are asking me, you know, what are the issues that are happening out in Flamborough with the city crew? They don't happen with GFL. And I understand that there's different services, one picking up recycling, et cetera, but the fact of the matter is those complaints are happening, and you've got recorded complaints that are coming in. So that's a fact, and we need to address it. Thank you.
Councillor Basuda.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor Pearson. I heard Councillor Ferguson mention about lost time. Possible is there lost time because of sprinting, and it is a hard job. I'll agree, it's hard work, the seasons and everything. It's tough. So we talked about that. Brian had mentioned about, made a note down here, vehicular wear and tear on the truck. Colin, when we talked about, when Councillor Partridge mentioned the GPS, and Colin, you mentioned it would keep track of driving habits. And so in there, have we kept track, or can we compare to, let's say, GFL, their maintenance records, and not necessarily the maintenance records, but the repair record per stop? So if there's certain pieces of equipment, when you push them, they break down, they're made for a certain job, but when I'm talking repair records as far as brakes, which is wear and tear, tires, transmissions, is there any way we can compare that with GFL or somebody else as far as per stop? Yes, Councillor Ferguson, fuel?
Through you, Madam Chairman. I think we can certainly do that, and I think it's a good piece of advice for us going forward. The implementation of GPS will put us on the same footing in terms of data availability as GFL, and I think it'll help facilitate that discussion and that ongoing comparative analysis going forward. So I think that's a great suggestion, and we'll certainly take note of that and add that to our coordination meetings agendas going forward.
So through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, so the compactor part of the truck is hydraulic driven, it's normal wear and tear on that. And I'm particularly talking the vehicle itself, the truck. So, and that's what I'm looking at. And that was something that has been brought up. So when you push a piece of equipment, if it's not made to be pushed, okay, there's more breakdowns on it. It happens, farm equipment, industry, anything else. So that's just something I brought up. I don't think it's been made aware of. So I'll just leave that with staff. And thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Farr.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. We're here because of the outcome of an investigative report from an investigative reporter from the Hamilton Spectator, and just respecting the feedback that I've received, and we've all received it since it was vast. It was supportive, and it was, also in the Spectator and the editorial comments. It wasn't hard to read between the lines that there is a great deal of support out there. It is a difficult job. They are hustling. From the folks that I've talked to here in Ward 2, if there's only one element that I would want to address here today, given what's before us, of which I'm going to support, is the quality of the service and just simply the discarding of the empty cans afterwards. And so when Brian or Colin are talking about quality of service and looking at that, would that element be looked at? And certainly if we took just a little more time placing, and they have been lately, rather than tossing, you're probably going to get an extra hour added to the route. Through you to Member.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's exactly what we're referring to in terms of quality of service, and we can track that by virtue of complaints relative to the placement of containers or the damage of containers or the loss of containers, and that's exactly what we're hoping to be able to improve upon.
Okay, well, thank you, Brian, and I'll look forward to this and your feedback as we go, and I thank all the folks that have engaged on this topic. It's tough. I was looking at earlier today or yesterday at this report, and I thought about the line from the U.S. Postal Service: neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom, and this is where I would edit, of winter mornings in Hamilton stays these waste collectors from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. And it's not debatable. They're getting the job done. We heard Councillor Marula say that. And we heard Councillor Marula speak to the feedback from his constituents in Ward 4. And there's no doubt they're getting the job done. And in sometimes difficult to predict conditions, let alone difficult predictions, and all the other factors, quite obviously. And one of the elements, too, that has hit home for me through Steve's reporting is, and he's reported on the actual topic of, I believe he has, on fair wage. When he's examined the Code Red, or the ongoing examination of the Code Red stories. And it's all about a decent income for hard work, or for work in Hamilton. And when not paying a fair wage in Hamilton, what it does for those families who are working 3 or 4 jobs just to keep up because they can't get a decent income. And what it does for our local economy, not much. So I'm very proud to be part of an organization here that celebrates the achievements and the awards that our waste collectors in this case have received, and our staff, but also pays accordingly. And those families of those 60 or so women and men are putting it back into our economy. I'm very proud that that I'm a part of an organization, part of a governing body of an organization that appreciates that, and that we continue to examine as a community through series like Code Red and others, bloggers and the Poverty Roundtable, to get us closer to fair wages rather than what maybe some private operators in this realm don't pay any attention to, and pocket the profits. So this is important. This is good follow-up. It came to us at an appropriate time, and I'll look forward to continued feedback. Thanks.
Thank you.
And I thank the men and women.
Thank you. Councillor Duval.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and I want to thank staff for this report. I mean, as the previous speaker just said, this has been highlighted and it's brought to our attention from an investigation by the media, and the optics doesn't look good. The way it was written, that's for sure, but it was brought to the attention of this council, and we've asked for this report, and we have to remember that and to our public that this was an accepted practice for years and years and years. So does it mean it's right? I mean, if you really look at it, how long has the department gone without a review? When you look at the old way, it was 6 bags of garbage or unlimited, and now it's down to 1 or 2. So bringing this, if it's 3 hours, if it's 4 hours, if it's 5 hours, it has come. We are dealing with the issue. Nobody has said that the people are doing a bad job. So, but we have to look at, are we getting the maximum work from our employees? And I really believe that the employees have done a great job. There has been a good question about health and safety. Are they taking their risk? And I know, basically working all my life in a manufacturing company, some people will take a risk to hurry up and finish the job. It's just the normal nature of people, and they can go. But the steps that we're taking, the recommended steps, I think that's great. I think we're going in the right direction. It's good to see that we're going to have a waste collection program performance. We're going to put the GPS on there so that, it's actually, it protects both sides. In case they're accused of something, they can always go back to this data. It works for the worker, it works for the city. But going through the review process with the union and the workers, I think it's one of the smartest things to do, because the workers don't want to go out there and look like the optics are bad and they're lazy and they take shortcuts. These are good people that are being paid good wages to do a good job, and they're doing that. So couldn't there be efficiencies? We might find that out. And one of the things that the union has a responsibility about is the health and safety of this membership, because that's why we have joint health and safety committees done by the law. So, efficiencies is one thing. These are taxpayers too. They don't want to see the money being blown out of there. So I think we're in the right step, going in the right process. And I think by this bringing that was brought to our attention, that we're doing the diligent work, making sure that we're getting the maximum work for the maximum bucks. So thank you to our staff.
Thank you, Councillor Duval. Councillor Whitehead, you said you had one quick question?
It was reported in Oakville that, do we have unit costs? Because my understanding when we entered into this competition, internal, external, it was about the checks and balances, which is, very laudable in regards to what we're trying to achieve. But what the articles are saying now is that there's a lot more competition in regards to that work, meaning that then it's driving prices down from a competitive point of view. Oakville's already indicating they're going all private, I guess, and they're experiencing a down drive because of that process. Are we going to get a report to assess what's in fact happening in the industry and whether there's some merit in what's taking place to cut those costs?
Through you, Madam Chair, that wasn't the intention of the recommendation, but surely the scope of the final report can be amended to address that, some sort of an environmental scan on that.
Yeah, I think just the environmental scan would be suffice, because I think what this article has led to is the whole idea of alternative service delivery, cost, competitiveness, those kinds of things, and we often get compared to what's happening in other jurisdictions. Many of my colleagues around here believe that we got one of the best models and most efficient services. I believe staff feel that way. But I think we need to ensure that we don't lose sight of the ball in regards to what's happening around us. And that should be part of that context to make the case. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So on the report before us, 8.1, can I have a mover and seconder on the recommendations? Councillor Jackson, Councillor Ferguson, all in favor, and all the input that staff have given and direction that's been put in place. Super. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Now, I just have to go back because I was remiss in not moving to receive Andrew Grice's presentation on item 7.2, the Civic Gateway Study. No, it's just to receive the presentation, sir. Moved by Councillor Whitehead, second by Councillor Ferguson. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Okay, now we have 6 more reports, ladies and gentlemen. So, item 8.2, Councillor Farr, 8.2 is the 5-year plan regarding two-way street conversions.
I'll be very quick on this. I just want to know where we would stand with what's before us, of which I support, contemplating the support that we received around this table on that Queen Cannon study, more specific to Queen, and I just wanted to get staff's comment on where we might stand in the pecking order, given that council did approve the CCS study, and that's a good study, but we haven't been able to release it publicly yet, and yet we did approve a community walkabout, a study group of citizens, and we did approve the funding to have this, all these statistics gathered, and the data is there, and it's very interesting, and I would very much like to include Ward 8, Ward 1, and Ward 2 in a conversation, but where does all that work that's now completed stand as we move forward with this approval here today?
Councillor, I'm going to ask you to hold off. Yeah, I'm going to ask you to hold off, though, for staff to answer that.
Sure.
Put it on the floor. But this motion, this matter was tabled at committee in December.
I know. Yep.
And I needed to go through this, so you jumped in there. So do we have to lift it? Thank you. Councillor Collins was going to catch me on this, so I knew that. So can I have a motion then, members of committee, item 9.2 is a motion that was put forward as a notice of motion by Councillor Collins at the April 16th GIC. And Councillor Collins, well, you want to lift this? And we move forward. Councillor Collins, Councillor Partridge, all in favor? Here. To lift this and put it back on the table.
8.2 back on the table?
It was tabled.
Oh, well, why didn't you say that?
That's what I said. It was tabled. So we have to lift it now so that we can deal with it. Moved and seconded. All in favor? To lift it. Put it back on the floor. Now I'll turn Councillor Farr. Your question has been on the floor. I'm going to turn to staff.
And I'm not, okay, and I'm not looking for a debate, just where it is on the pecking order.
I'm asking for an answer. Thank you.
Through the chair, we do have the information that was provided by the citizens group, the walkabout group. There was some short-term and some long-term suggestions that they did have. We're working with some of the short-term suggestions, simple things such as street name signs, some aesthetics to be improved. The bigger issues of one-way street and reverse lanes, that's a lot more difficult subject to get through. That we're hoping to discuss in detail through the upcoming TMT.
So, I was just going to say Maria. Madam Deputy Mayor, through you to Alan, the Centre for Community Study, as well as approved by Council, the funding, did a study, and it looked at all the flows and where the traffic is going. And that's a completed study. So maybe just as direction, as you move forward and analyze, if we approve what's here today, you could, sooner rather than later, at the very least, reach out to the Centre for Community Study and have a look at that data, assess that data, and then meet with the 3 ward councillors immediately affected at an appropriate time. Is that suitable through you?
Through the chair, absolutely. We have stakeholder groups. We have people we reach out to, and we would certainly include that group and the ward councillors.
Very good. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think Councillor Collins spoke very eloquently about the process that we've embarked on. We already approved a number of conversions that we just need to find budget for. I think we found a budget for Rebecca Street this year. Queen Street isn't part of that approval or any of that approval process. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm going to ask staff this question, but it was my understanding that any other conversions would be plugged into the master transportation study. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
So would we not then take this work, this good work that was done by the ward councillors, and plug that information into that master transportation plan to inform that plan when it comes back with its recommendations?
Through the chair, absolutely. Again, we look forward to receiving that type of information and including discussions with community groups and stakeholders about how to move forward through the TMP process.
Okay, so I'm not sure, maybe I can get some clarification from Councillor Farr. If we're already embarking on the master transportation study, we're going to utilize the work that was already done and plug that into the master transportation study, then I guess I'm trying to understand where the intersect is at this point, or what intersect is needed at this point.
Intersects at Queen and Duke. There's been a great deal of work done. All I'm suggesting, Councillor Whitehead, is that there's been a great deal of work done. There's plenty to do as it relates to the review when reading the report, so that Al is aware that the Centre for Community Study has completed this work. It's available on my website, jasonfarr.com, and it should be part of this ongoing TMP review.
Great. So I certainly support that, Madam Chair, and I think it will help inform the whole process.
One thing I did say is if we can sooner, not later, reach out to the centre to at least direct Al to have a look at that information, it would be helpful.
Well, that would be part of Al's work plan. Is that not correct, Al?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
So there's a pecking order in the work plan. If you could put it at the front of the work plan rather than...
Thank you.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Ferguson.
My only question, I wish Councillor Clark was here because I remember he adamantly asked the question the last time we had a debate in these two-way conversions, is Main and King off the table? And the answer was yes. But you look on page 6 of 9, they're on the list. And so why are we leaving on this? The report does state that we got to put them on hold because of BRT, LRT, going back to horse and buggy, whatever the case may be. But I would like to see King and Main off the list now, not up for consideration as illustrated on page 6 of 9. So through you to Al, why are you got those two roads on there? There are trio roads. We got big plans for them.
Through the chair, again, this report was written back in December. That comment from the councillor was after this was written. We did hear through conversation through committee and council that they did not want us to look at the Main and King arterials. Again, LRT, BRT discussions was involved. We can certainly not included in the TMP if that's the direction that we receive from council, or again, we can include it through our modeling and through our costing, just again to give you an idea what's involved.
Well, Madam Chair, if you come back to me, I'm going to move an amendment. Those two streets be removed.
Councillor, just so you know, we're just going to receive item 8.2, and then we're going to go back to Councillor Collins' motion from April 16th,
But
correct?
if we receive it, we accept
Yes.
it, though. And
No, we just lifted it from the floor, and then Councillor Farr asked questions. Okay?
Whatever you try, whatever you want to do.
Come on, guys. Come on. Okay, so, are you okay
talk to
with...
the councillor and ask, tell him who has the floor?
Are you okay? You have the floor, but I'm going to say, are you done now?
Okay.
Thank you.
So what would be inappropriate before we receive this report that we remove Main and King off the list? I think Ida has a comment on
Councillor, if you receive it, that means taking no action.
Oh, okay. Move to receive.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Marula, move to receive item 8.2. Then I'm going to turn. All in favor, carried. Councillor Collins, I'm going to return back to your motion that you put on the floor on April the 16th, correct, Madam Chair or Madam Clerk?
Sorry, it's item 9.2 in your agenda.
That's fine? Excellent. Okay, so moved by Councillor Collins, 9.2, second by Councillor Farr. Hang on, let them read it. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank 8.3 is a legal dumping pilot project. Councillor Jackson, you have a question?
I just want to thank General Manager Davis. Love the collaboration with SMT since waste comes out of Public Works. And unfortunately, illegal dumping often is the result of illegal waste that's being dumped somewhere. To help out the acting general manager Everson, I love the fact that Public Works is generously, magnanimously offering $300,000 towards continuing this fight, and I strongly support this. Thank you.
Thank you, and we must recognize that we have had staff, Kim Coombs, and I'm sorry, who else is with you today, Kim, in attendance and have waited patiently all day.
That is our supervisor of illegal dumping, Tamara Reed.
Tamara Reed, good evening, Tamara. It's an evening already, but thank you for your patience. I'm assuming there are no questions. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Item 8.4 is public art piece honoring L.M. Alexander. Questions, comments? There's nothing from staff. Councillor Whitehead, then Councillor Partridge.
Can I just ask through staff, do we have a matrix in regards to these kinds of requests like we do with parks? I had a call from a woman that was part of a women's group that had asked about Ellen Fairclough and the fact that she was the first cabinet minister, federal cabinet minister, woman federal cabinet minister, acting deputy prime minister, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just trying to understand, what is the policy? Is there a process? Is there gender equity in regards to this process so that we're not discriminating against anyone relative to the process?
Through the chair, so there's a couple of ways that public art comes to fruition. There is the public art master plan that's approved by council, which is just currently going under a review right now. There is also opportunities for public art to be part of a larger public works project, and we also have funding that can come from private organizations for public art in the downtown core. There's also an opportunity for special programs that may be brought onto the floor through a motion, and that's what this one is. It was brought on the floor through a motion. So no, there is no type of matrix in the way that you're describing it.
Okay, so currently we don't have a policy, so right now we're doing an ad hoc until we develop a policy. Would that be correct?
So in terms of public art, the way the process is, which is council approved, is that through the master plan, we identify areas for public art. We identify the scale of public art for those areas. When they come up in the list, we go out to the public and we ask them what they want within that area. So there's different ways to do it. In this particular situation, though, if it comes onto the floor through a motion and it's been pre-selected, then that is the particular project. So in this particular one, it was due to Lincoln Alexander Day being declared by the province, and we were asked to come up with some different ideas for commemoration for him. So this was an idea and we were asked to find out whether it was feasible, what the cost would be, that type of thing. So this is the report that's in front of you right now.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'm still a bit puzzled because what I'm hearing then, we got a fund, and we can use that fund on request of motion. So we can pick and choose ad hocly and not pay and give due recognition to individuals that have contributed significantly to, like Lincoln, to our community, such as Ellen Fairclough. So I just want to know, because the question I'm asking on behalf of a couple constituents that actually called, if you're going to start building huge statues of people, then what is the process to do so? And how do we ensure that there's not a gender bias and that everybody that's deserving of such recognition has due consideration?
So through the chair, again, through the Public Art Master Plan, we identify geographic areas and scale. So there's a couple of different ways to address what Councillor Whitehead is asking. So if there is a want or need in the community to start recognizing Hamiltonians for their contributions, that can be done through the Public Art Master Plan review. Those are suggestions that the public can bring up, and they will then be incorporated in the review. We'll also be interviewing all the councillors as part of the review, and that can be considered at that time also.
Great. So is there a citizen panel then that looks at these requests, looks at the location, looks at the cost, and then comes back with the recommendation back to this council?
So through the Public Art Master Plan, there's quite an extensive process that has a lot of public consultation in it. It's one of the reasons public art takes a long time, is because we do consult quite a bit.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just for, I believe, and I appreciate Councillor Whitehead's comments on Ellen Fairclough, I believe at the Ellen Fairclough building there is a statue, a bust in her honor. So just for the record, I'm going to turn now to Councillor Partridge, then I have Councillor Duvall and Councillor Ferguson.
Okay, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. And so, Anna, just on the public consultation, because what I'm hearing is this is a request that is coming forward. And where did the request originate?
Through the chair. So earlier in this year, the province had declared a Lincoln Alexander Day.
Right.
So we were asked through the mayor's office to come up with some ideas on how we could commemorate that. So we did have a small event here in City Hall, and we provided some other ideas. One of them was the possibility of a public art piece to commemorate Lincoln Alexander. So there was a motion brought forward on the council floor, and it was just to look at the feasibility. Is it possible to do this, and is there funds available to do it? So that is what this report is addressing.
Okay, so it was driven by a public meeting where there was requests that came forward?
No, it was a motion that was on the council floor.
Which came from the mayor's office?
Correct.
Okay. All right, okay. And I guess, similar to Councillor Whitehead, I'm a little uncomfortable with this, that we don't have any kind of a policy or a procedure that we follow. I can see that, there will be other requests that are going to come forward as well. And so I would feel more comfortable if we had a policy or a procedure in place for this. I wonder if you could comment on that.
So through the chair, we do have quite an extensive policy and procedure on how public art is developed in Hamilton, and there are several different ways that it can happen. This is just one. If there is a specific request that comes through council that is brought on the council floor, then it can be looked at that way. But this is not the norm of how we generally do public art in the different areas of Hamilton. There's quite a consultation process that happens.
All right, so if this gets passed today, then what is the next step in terms of the public process, which we haven't really had yet?
The chair, the first step would be is that there would be a focus group consultation, and that would look at going through the public art policy, that we would need to look at coming up with the values, the attributes, things like that around Lincoln Alexander. We would then have consultation, making sure that we go out to the artists asking for them to come back with their ideas and thoughts. So we often use the word statute, but sometimes it's not a statute, it's something else. We also need to have extensive consultation on where should this be located if it is council's wish that we go ahead with it. So there's quite a bit of consultation that has to happen from this period.
But is it public consultation?
Absolutely.
All right, so it is the broader public that would be involved, because, I mean, an absolutely tremendous man, and we all knew him well, and, I just want to make sure that any recognition that he is that the recognition is done properly. I'd also want to make sure that his children are involved in the consultation.
The chair, we have been in consultation with both his wife and children before this motion was brought to the floor, so definitely they have to be a big part of this. There's also a public jury that would select the piece, so they will be involved in that also.
So it's basically the same process that we went through for the public art that's up at the Twin Pad Arena, the charrette, the vetting of the different artists and that kind of thing.
The difference in this particular one is generally when we follow the master plan is that we've just identified a geographic location and a scale, and we start with public consultation saying, what is it that you would like to see on this? And you'll get all sorts of different ideas. This particular one, it was already self-identified on what the theme was, but then everything else falls into place after that.
Okay, thank you. So, but at this point, we don't know if it's going to be a bust, a statue. We don't know what it's going to be. I just hope that it tastefully reflects the enormous talent of the man. And council will have no part of that decision-making, is what I'm hearing.
What happens is there is a jury, and they will look at all the different, what we call maquettes that will come forward from selected artists. We also put it on the website, and we have comment that is public comment. So, by example, the public art piece that is going up at in front of the market, we're in the public comment process right now, and we've got well over 500 comments, and it doesn't close until May 25th. So there's a lot of interest in public art, and people want to give their opinions on it.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Councillor Duval.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and through you to Anna. Anna, thanks for this report. And some of my residents have commented to me that they feel the $300,000 could be better spent on something else. But reading the report, obviously this comes from a public art fund. And could you explain how that public art fund started?
The public art fund started about 10 years ago or so. It was when Joe Ronaldo was still here, and we identified block funding through the capital budget process of $250,000 a year. Sometimes we get that amount, sometimes we don't, depending on where projects are. Any money that's left over at the end of the year is transferred into a reserve, and this is the money that we've identified for this particular one.
And just to clarify also, there's also a portion now that can be apportioned on development charges. Is that correct? SEPA area, I just remembering.
Yeah. Through the chair, it's only for the downtown core, and it is a voluntary contribution towards public art.
Okay, so thanks for that. So, Anna, so basically it's been a yearly budget, a certain amount of funds that we put away on each yearly budget. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct, through the capital budget process.
Okay, thank you. So if this was denied, could we use the money elsewhere, or we would have to spend it again on something that's public art?
The chair, the council has passed a public art master plan, of which I think we're in a deficit right now of about $900,000. So that money would just be reallocated to one of the other approved projects.
So it would have to be art, though, right? All right. So I just want to clear that, to some of my residents, that this is just something that we're just not taking from another pot of money. That even if we decline this type of statue, that that money would still be used for some type of other art and not for any other use. So, thank you very much.
And it's not to preclude that funding couldn't come from donations, private citizens, or this crowdfunding, civic crowdfunding option. So just I have Councillor Ferguson and then Councillor Murray.
Yeah, just a couple questions through you to Anna. Anna, if Link was alive and you suggested you're going to spend $300,000 to build a statue out of him, what do you think his reaction would be? Get that big laugh, wouldn't you?
I don't know. I've known him for a long time. I think he may be very pleased with that.
He was a relatively modest person. He never owned a car, and took public transit and got his way around. And I just worry that I heard so much pushback about spending $250,000 on a 50-foot gateway sign, but we're going to spend $300,000 on something that's 6'2", and if it is a statue. And so what I'm worried about is we got to get this right, and somehow do we recognize the street he lived on with a plaque, or is it a statue in City Hall? And I'm just worried. We've been here 10 hours now, and we're going to make the right decision. I would like to flip this back to the naming subcommittee. I'm trying to think of a committee we could send it to. I know you don't want it because you're chair. I just don't like to make this decision at 7 o'clock at night after being here all day. And I'm not sure that he would agree with this if he was alive, and so I want to get my head around this before we spend $300,000.
Madam Chair?
Well, I'll give Councillor Miller's reaction. I may come back again.
No, but on the issue, I think obviously affordability becomes a very significant component. But keep in mind that my understanding is that the mayor and Mr. Alexander's wife have been in discussions, and this was a request that came through from the family to the mayor's office to further enhance the recognition of Mr. Alexander. Having said that, the fact that Mr. Alexander served provincially and federally, I think, suggests, from my perspective, that there should be some buy-in from a financial perspective from both levels of government as well. So I wouldn't mind going through the process and seeking out, not the crowdfunding scenario, but seeking out further commitments financially from levels of government that he actually served under, and that being the federal government as an MP, and even the Progressive Conservative Party should also be spoken to as well. I think they would want to be part of this and should be recognized as well. I'm not sure why we would keep this at the municipal level. So having said that, I will move that accordingly, that we do seek out partnerships with the federal government, the provincial government, and the Progressive Conservative Party in funding this endeavor.
So you're adding that as item new D, and the D becomes E, correct?
Yeah.
Hang on. I'm just saying that's what he's putting on. So, right?
You're not moving the whole motion. You're just moving.
No.
Because that's correct. Because at this point, Madam Chair, just correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not committing to the expenditure today, are we not?
No, we're not.
No, we're not. So what I'm asking for is they seek out partnerships with the federal government, the provincial government, and the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada to seek out financial commitment.
Okay, so then I need to just get clarification from Anna. So actually what you're doing, Councillor, is you're now changing C to say instead of using the Public Art Reserve Fund to the tune of $300,000, that we're going to seek out partnerships with the federal, the provincial, and the Conservative Party. And
That's
is that
correct.
what I'm understanding?
With our
so you're going to
contribution
change,
yet to be determined.
correct. So you're
pending
going to
the outcome
change
of that.
C, will now reflect what you're changing it to, and D stays the same. Does everybody understand that? We're changing C so it's not art funding reserve. We're going to seek out partnership with the federal, the provincial, and the Conservative membership. Correct? Anna, you have that? So, hang on. I'm going to go back to Councillor Ferguson?
Okay, I can live with that. I think it'd be cleaner if we just referred it back to staff to have them seek out provincial, federal, and third-party support, then bring the whole thing back to us again. Because if you approve the recommendation just by changing C, that we seek out funding, we're telling them to go ahead and undertake a public art process to commission the public art piece, that the location of the piece be determined as part of the focus group consultation. So you're instructing staff to go off and do something without understanding where the funding coming from. So it would be simpler just to refer the report back to culture, to seek the support from the other two levels of government.
On condition of the, okay, that's fine. So on condition of the motion then. So pending the outcome of that. Okay, that's fine. That's good point.
Councillor Partridge.
Yeah, no, and I'm much more comfortable with it being referred back to staff. But I'm also wondering if we should include in that, and I agree, the hour is late, but should we include in that staff come back with a policy on exactly what it is we're doing
That's a good
here
point.
today?
That should be an added.
Yeah, like I really think that needs to be part of it. Otherwise, we're just going to start having this stuff come to our table.
We have a policy. Let's just clarify. We have a policy. It's been answered twice now.
No, Anna said we didn't have a policy.
We have a policy.
Not on individuals, we don't.
We have a public art policy, but it does not, Councillor Partridge is right, that part of that policy is not about individuals because that should be done as part of the public art master plan, which the review is happening. But however, in saying that, councillors do have the right to bring that onto the council floor if there is a special or specific project.
All right, thank you. Anna, I appreciate that because I knew that's what I heard you say, that we don't have a policy on individuals. So I think it makes sense to add that in when it's going back to staff, that we look at developing that policy to address the type of requests for private individuals. And I can, yeah, thank you. I'll move that and, yeah. And so it's referring back, there's no funding. Thank you.
So on what's on the floor, on the referral first, I very much support it and second it. I think I still second it unless Councillor Ferguson wants to. But I'm very supportive of this project. One of the major reasons, there's two reasons why I support it. First of all, and foremost, the feds and the province is an extremely good point Councilor Murillo has made. They will, I would suspect, be running at us to pony up and be part of this, I would suspect. And secondly, I'm very, very supportive of the public art process and the approved budgets of the public art process. So the less we spend on this wonderful idea, it's brilliant, the more we have for more public art.
Okay, I was getting a light. Anyways, so all I want to ask is, Madam Deputy Mayor, in light of what's going to be obviously put in a state of abeyance, is there, through you to Anna, is there an expectation, and there's going to be some disappointment because there was an expectation with this report here today? Through you to Anna, please.
The Chair, I think the motion was clear that we were just asked to look at the feasibility of it and if there was funding for it. So if council is now approving the project with direction for staff to be seeking funds from other levels of government, I think you're covered.
Well, I didn't hear that they're necessarily approving it from my colleagues. I heard that both seeking other funding and to set up a policy on individuals, Anna, is what I heard. So through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, to Anna, I just want to make sure that there's no hurt feelings if there was expectations coming into today with this report. Through you to Anna.
So through the Chair, maybe I'm confused that for us to go into the government to seek funding, I would assume that we would have to have had direction from council that this project is approved contingent on finding other funding.
Contingent on finding that money.
Hold it. Do I have the floor? Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I was going to get a light again. Okay, so I'm glad I asked, because obviously there's a lot of disagreement as to what direction we're giving staff today or not. So, Madam Deputy Mayor, if we're going to defer this matter and let staff explore if there's funding that may be for a future project, that's one thing. If we're actually approving this in principle and telling staff, see what you can do to mitigate the municipal cost, that's a different thing. If we're putting it all on hold pending a policy on individual statutes, then that's another thing again. And I just want clarity, please, Madam Deputy Mayor, and you're doing a yeoman's job, and your tenacious 10 members of council are hanging in there with you. I just need to know what I'm going to be voting on. Thank you.
Madam Chair? Just for clarity purposes, basically my understanding when I brought forward the motion was to simply state that we would seek out partnerships with the Progressive Conservative Party, the federal government, and the provincial government in funding this project on condition that we can find those additional funds. So if it's not time sensitive, as Councillor Collins has mentioned, I have no problem that referring the motion as well as referral to staff. We'll deal with it at council. If we can have clerk with staff work out the wording, I'll bring it forward accordingly at council, and we can go from there. If everyone's satisfied with that, my dogs are waiting for me.
I appreciate that, Councillor, because it's getting confusing. I'm trying to pen in things, and I just think staff need to go back, understand what we've said, the clerk has the information, and you can bring forward a motion at council. Okay? So it's been referred, Councillor Marula, Councillor Ferguson, refer back to staff, and we'll get correct. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Item 8.5, Facilities Naming Subcommittee, Councillor Farr?
I'm fine with what's here, quite obviously, especially recommendation 1, but to my colleagues who are on the Facility Naming Committee, if I could simply ask, not move any motion, that whomever, are you chair?
I'm chair of it, yes, sir.
Could you, at your agenda review, include an update for your next minutes or your next report on the Victor K. Copps facility naming?
That's being worked on. We can ask for that update.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the motions before, the reports before us, moved by Councillor Farr, second by Councillor Collins. Okay, Councillor Marula and Councillor Collins. All in favor? It's getting late. Item 8.6, Hamilton's Farmers Market Subcommittee Report. Questions, comments? Can I have a motion, Councillor Pasuda?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just to comment on this one down to 8.6, Hamilton's Farmers Market Subcommittee. John Hertel and staff have been doing a terrific job on this, getting a governance model put into place. And just for my colleagues around the table, it's amazing what a small committee of 3 council members and good staff work can do. So, thank you.
Okay, no other comments. Motion to approve or receive, Councillor Pasuda, Councillor Partridge. All in favor? Sorry, Councillor Farr. My apologies. All in favor? Carried, everyone. Thank you. And then lastly, I think item 8.7 is
I'll move
one
it.
we just got today. Hang on, we're going too fast. Airport Implementation Task Force Report. Moved by Councillor Ferguson, second by Councillor Whitehead. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Now we're going to go on to motions. No, there's no motions. We have that. Yes, Councillor Whitehead.
Unfortunately, I had to step out of the room for an interview when you were dealing with the LRT, and I did have a motion, a notice of motion. And that notice of motion was dealing with the A and B and studying. Correct. But still a notice of motion. Clearly, it's not prudent to be doing anything at this point in time until we determine who the new government is. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I just want to clarify. We have a motion here, but that just stands till the next meeting. Councillor Morrow's motion, 9-1. He's not here. Okay, so we'll leave that on. Then I'm going to go on to... Second. Just a second. That's on general information items. No. Correct, Madam Clerk. General information and members of the committee. We have items 11.1A is an item from the outstanding business list with a revised due date. Thank you. That's a Citizens Committee report on Farmers Market white paper. Moved by Councillor Ferguson, second by Councillor Jackson. All in favor, carried. Members of committee, we have item 11.1b, are items which are deemed to be complete and removed from the outstanding business list. May I have a motion to remove these items? So they're items B, entrance and or gateway signage. C, item JJ, Hamilton Music Festival, item 844 today. D, item NN, public art piece. Well, that's not coming off.
No,
right?
kill D.
And item E is the collaboration between Fraunhofer IZI Institute McMaster. Do we want that off? Do we want that E off, Ida, or is that still on?
Going to come back, so we can leave.
We'll leave it on. So we only have 2 to be removed today. Moved by Councillor Jackson, second by Councillor Farr. All in favor? Carry. Councillor Ferguson, moved to adjourn. Councillor Jackson, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I didn't think we'd do it.